The Bad Batch is back with a 3-episode season premiere. Today we're talking about Confined, Paths Unknown, and Shadows of Tantus. As an initial reaction, I was really happy with all three, but especially the first and third episodes. They could have easily been a 2-part episode premiere, working together to tell a complete story that was moving and surprising. Lots of setup and payoff that was fun to see. But Paths Unknown was also enjoyable, and simply wouldn't have worked if it played after the events of episode 3. But yeah, my first impressions are that this series has not missed a beat, and I'm so glad it's back. So now let's dive deeper into all 3 episodes. Things start immediately on Mount Tantus, which is a relief. We got teased with it so much in the first 2 seasons, but already in the premiere we get a bunch of answers, or at least took some steps towards some answers about what's going on there. An Imperial shuttle crashes and the survivors are torn apart by some unknown creatures in the night. Going inside, Omega has seemingly been kept in the mountain fortress for a couple of weeks, and things look grim there. Clones seem like they're wasting away as Imri, the other female clone, takes blood samples from them and then Omega. But Nala Se quickly destroys Omega's sample to keep her safe. Not before I could translate some of the Arabesh on the screen though, which just says stamina, agility, and strength. I guess they're tracking all the clones' Dungeons and Dragons stats. But back to important things, Nala Se tells Omega and the audience right in the first episode what the Empire wants to do. They're trying and failing to reproduce a genetic M count or metachlorian count, and she goes on to say their test specimens are not the clone troopers. This is the first piece of a puzzle that I will assemble a little later in this video, because for now, Hemlock takes Nala Se away into a very high security vault. Omega's other daily tasks include caring for the guard dogs of Mount Tantus called Lurka Hounds. While she does her chores, she secretly collects a bit of straw and gives some of her own food to a specific hound she's named Batcher. This hound is a little different from the others. It's skittish and lonely and doesn't eat what it's given. I think Omega felt connected to it because it's different, and that's why she gave it the fitting name Batcher, like she's part of the crew. Omega is needing some connection because the only brother she has around is Crosshair, and he's not being very receptive to Omega's insistence that they can escape if they work together. We also see that Crosshair has developed a trimmer in his hand, which is a heartbreaking but good development for him. In Season 2, he refused to be anything but a soldier. His whole thing is being a great shot. Those talents aren't as easily adapted to life outside of the military, not like Hunter, Tech, or Wrecker, whose enhancements are useful just about anywhere. Crosshair probably wondered who he would be without a blaster in his hands, and now he might be losing that too. To keep the sadness going, Omega puts a mark on the wall showing us that she's been there for 21 days. Then she gets the straw out of her 10. I was wondering if she was going to make something crafty to help her escape, but instead she uses it to repair a little replication of the stuffed animal she had on the Havoc Marauder. It's a great reminder that yes, she has become very capable, but she's also just a kid, trapped, scared, and alone. And then we get a time jump to see that she has continued to be that way for at least 150 days. That's how many marks on the wall I can see at any rate, but that's 5 months without her brothers, going through the exact same routine with Imri and Nala Se, who I guess has trashed 150 or so blood samples without raising Imperial suspicions, so good for her. Omega finds out that her Lurka Hound, Batcher, got hurt while on patrol, and that she will be put down if she doesn't recover. Batcher is a parallel for the clones, and more specifically Crosshair. Batcher is an attack dog, bred or maybe captured and forced into service, but only kept around as long as she's useful. There's no value put on her life beyond protecting the facility. Only Omega is willing to spend the time to help and heal her, even when it comes to risking her own safety. Then we cut straight to Crosshair, who tries to insist that Omega stop wasting her time on lost causes like him and the Hound. He acts like Batcher did when Omega first approached her, fangs out, just trying to be left alone. He claims he wouldn't think twice about leaving her behind if he had a chance to escape, which is a mean way to look out for her, but I think he is. He already risked his life to help her in Season 2. I just think he's trying to not make himself a liability, because like he tells her, he thinks he deserves to be there and be punished for staying with the Empire instead of his brothers. And he might expect to be left behind. He felt abandoned by the rest of Clone Force 99 in Season 1, then the Empire discarded him in Season 2. But Omega insists that no clone belongs in Tantus and that she will break them out. Great scene. The next day, Omega's toy is taken away in a random inspection, and we see Nalase and Hemlock discussing their experiments. It would seem that they were able to transfer some midichlorians into a clone, but the overall count diminished in the process. Hemlock says the Emperor won't be pleased unless they can maintain or improve the count. They have a very Return of the Jedi style conversation as Nalase learns that the Emperor will be popping by to review their progress. Again, I'm going to talk about the full picture later once we have all the pieces. In the kennels, Omega finds out that Batcher is scheduled to be put down, not because she was hurt, but because Omega has treated her with so much kindness that it's become domesticated and supposedly weak. The Empire wants their Lurka hounds to be vicious above all else. They value strength above kindness and true loyalty. So of course, Omega sets Batcher free into the wild, which Hemlock witnesses. He reinforces the idea that Omega made the hound weak and that Batcher will die as part of the food chain. I love Omega's insistence that the hound deserves a chance to find out for herself. Again, Batcher is a metaphor for the clones, an animal bred to fight that found connection in the world around her and purpose beyond violence. That purpose doesn't fit the Empire's vision, so they were going to discard her, but she and the clones deserve a chance to see what they could be in this galaxy. And they also need someone like Omega or Chuchi to offer them some support. And then at the end, Emery turns a corner and seems like she might be someone that could support her little sister, returning the homemade doll to her while Batcher howls in the wild. I am so glad they showed her howling too, because the way the rest of this episode went, I was afraid she was out there losing a fight. But now it's time to catch up with Hunter and Wrecker in the episode Paths Unknown. This episode starts in a fortress under the control of the Duran Syndicate, so we get to catch up with Roland, who we haven't seen since Season 1, where we saw the Pikes cut off one of his horns. We establish how cold-hearted Roland's mother Issa is, but Hunter and Wrecker bring them the pike that removed his horn. In exchange, they provide the clones with the location of Hemlock's lab. On their ship, Hunter sits at the computer doing tech's job, with his brother's goggles sitting nearby, and Omega's stuffed animal is also sitting right where she left it. These constant reminders of the people they've lost, and Hunter has been staring at them for months. He's so desperate he won't even wait for Rex and Echo to meet them. Wrecker has become the voice of reason, suggesting that they wait. That's a pretty big shift in the dynamic. They land on a jungle planet that Wrecker claims smells like rancid Jotaz, which is a fun connection to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. They soon discover that the Duran's intelligence was outdated, finding a laboratory that has long since been destroyed. They plan to go inside anyway to see if they can find a lead, but then they're confronted by two young clones named Deke and Stack. We last saw them being transferred off Kamino at the end of Season 1. On one hand, I'm glad we followed up on that storyline. I was wondering what happened to them. On the other hand, it turns out all but 3 of them died, so the Bad Batch premiere just keeps on being heartbreaking. We find out that the base was abandoned and destroyed because the Empire created an experimental biological weapon called Slithervines, which they predictably lost control of, and it overran the base. It makes you wonder how many other planets the Empire has ruined like this. Create something crazy, lose control of it, leave it behind to run amok after trying and failing to blast it into oblivion, repeat. Back at the young clones camp, we meet Mox, a slightly older survivor. They all have some trust issues because even the older clone troopers left them all to die in the orbital bombardment. But still, one of the younger boys, Deke, decides to help Hunter, Wrecker, and Gonki get inside on the chance that they could find something about Omega. He points out their loyalty to her and wishes the regular clones looked out for him. This episode feels set apart from the first and third episodes, but it's still connected thematically. Looking out for those that are younger than you, or supposedly weaker than you, or just need your help in general is more valuable than personal strength. Inside the laboratory ruins, the group is attacked by Slithervines, and maybe it's because I just watched Lord of the Rings, but it seems like a shot-for-shot callback to Frodo being attacked by the Watcher in the water outside of Moria. Anyway, Hunter and Wrecker save Deke and fight their way through the Slithervines that have turned into creepy crawly vines? I don't know, but that creature design is great. Outside, the tension is raised when the other 2 young regs discuss stealing the Havoc Marauder and escaping on their own. Deke talked about how he wished the other clones looked out for him like the Bad Batch looks out for Omega, and here we see his best friends are considering abandoning him. But seeing the example Hunter and Wrecker have set puts some doubt in Mox's mind. The rest of the episode is like a video game level where you've got to protect a person or computer while data downloads. A massive Slithervine creature attacks that looks like it could be part plant, part Dianoga or something, but Mox and Stack, of course, make the right choice and save the day, rescuing the group and the Havoc Marauder. And then they dump a bunch of thermal detonators in the monster's mouth. The data they recover narrows down Omega's location to a sector of space, and Hunter tells the boys he'll drop them off at Pabu before they continue their search. It's a really nice way to end the episode with Hunter telling the younger generation they can be more than soldiers. It's the same journey he has had to go on himself. Yes, he has to find Omega, but I'm sure he will be joining Rex and Echo in the fight for all clones as well. They need to fight so the next generation hopefully won't have to. Of course, we know that's not exactly the case with the Galactic Civil War on the way, but it's still a nice sentiment. It's good to see Hunter relating to a bunch of Regs, a group the Bad Batch weren't on good terms with when the series began. But now let's head back to Omega for the third episode, Shadows of Tantus. This time, we get a quick look at and reminder of the specialized clone assassin that we saw in Season 2, but don't learn anything more about him. There's a lot of that in this episode, baby steps taken towards answers. I think we get enough information to keep me happy, but I'm still anxious to see the full picture. Omega is still going through her routine, getting her blood tests and stuff, but she recognizes that something is different. An unexpected guest is on the way, obviously the Emperor. Nala Se won't be able to destroy Omega's sample this time and tells her it's time to escape before her blood is tested. And girl, speak faster! Time is of the essence, and there's no time for your usual cadence. Pick up the pace. The blood sample machine that rotates like a clock is such a cool visual device, counting down the time until Omega is discovered. It's awesome to see the Emperor on Mount Tantus. Having read about this place since Heir to the Empire, I've loved getting the chance to see it on screen, but having Palpatine there makes it even cooler. Hemlock prattles on about the expansion of the facilities and the fact that they can test very large assets, which I assume means the clone Zillo beast they have captured there, but Palpatine only cares about Project Necromancer, which was first mentioned in The Mandalorian Season 3. Everyone kind of assumed on name alone that it had to do with cloning the Emperor on Exegol, but having this direct connection to Palpatine makes that even more likely. We don't get to actually see who or what they're cloning, but it has to be Palpatine, right? I was begging the camera to just turn around and show us. But the security around the specimens and Hemlock talking about producing a successful M-count replication is enough for me. Not to mention Palpatine talking about how this project will secure the future of the Empire. This is his ultimate contingency plan, achieving a sort of immortality that would allow him to rule the galaxy forever. Meanwhile, Omega acts casual as she begins her escape, entering an elevator and kicking a mouse droid out of it, which was hilarious. David W. Collins or whoever is responsible for that sound design, bravo. It was like the noise a remote control car makes when you push it backwards, and I loved it. I also love Crosshair's exasperation when Omega shows up to escape without any form of plan, but they're part of the Bad Batch. They know how to improvise and take down a couple TK troopers. Seeing them work together is fantastic, especially as Crosshair's frustration grows when he finds out the Emperor is there. All shuttles are grounded, so Omega decides they should head out into the wild to find the crashed one Hemlock told her about. Emery tries to convince them both to go back to their cells, but they escape out of Batcher's empty kennel when she alerts security, which is some fantastic setup and payoff between the first and third episodes. The hounds are sent after them, Omega trips and Crosshair stops to help her up, proving that he wouldn't leave her behind without a second thought like he claimed earlier. They see a giant scary creature as well, but the Lurkahounds attack it while they make it to the shuttle, which can't be flown or used to contact Hunter. Omega starts to waver in her faith, but now it's Crosshair's turn to take the lead and offer up some hope, and together they execute one of the Bad Batch's plans, which is great. Even with Crosshair's trimmer and inability to shoot perfectly, he provides a distraction while Omega boards the TK Trooper shuttle with some help from Batcher. Again, excellent payoff. Predictable? Yes. Well executed? Also yes. And thank goodness Crosshair and Omega escaped with the Hound. I was so worried for her. I was also worried for Omega the entire time. After watching the trailer, I had it in my head that somehow Crosshair would escape and she would be left behind. I was prepared for more heartbreak the whole episode, but I was so pleasantly surprised to see both of them escaping Tantus. The whole sequence was very intense. But they're kind of allowed to escape because Omega's blood is finally tested and it yields a positive result. So, let's talk about what makes Omega so special. What does the Empire want from her? That's been the question since I think the very first episode of the series, and I think we now know enough to make a solid guess. First, let's talk about the Emperor's specific goals. The Rise of Skywalker novelization and the novel Shadow of the Sith go into the problems Palpatine faced after his physical death in Return of the Jedi. He had clone bodies set up on Exegol, but none of them were suitable vessels for his spirit. They weren't able to replicate a physical body for him to inhabit, so he degraded quickly. Sith scientists stopped trying to make exact copies of Palpatine, and that's where Rey's father, Dathan, came from. He was a hybrid strandcast that wound up having little connection to the Force. He wound up escaping, marrying, and having Rey. To me, it sounds like the problem Hemlock is having is that when they clone the Emperor, the new copy's midichlorian count degrades and decreases. It's like making a Xerox copy or compressing a file. You're always going to lose some quality. So I think they're taking each clone trooper's blood and then adding some of Palpatine's blood to it, and they're measuring some sort of reaction. And out of every clone tested, Omega's blood is the only one that provided the correct results. As Emery puts it, a positive M count transfer with no degradation from the specimen. So to put it simply, I think Omega's blood is the key to creating a clone that won't cause a decrease in midichlorian count. But why is that? We know Omega is the 5th member of the Bad Batch, but we don't know her enhancement, the same way we know Wrecker is strong and Tech is hyper-intelligent. Is she Force-sensitive? Maybe. That's a question fans were asking way back when the series started. Right now, I'm leaning towards no, but I could see the Kaminoans at least trying to create a Force-sensitive clone. Maybe Nala Se loaded her up with midichlorians just to see what would happen. If that's the case, then I think that means Omega has a high potential for Force sensitivity, even if she's not showing any signs. It sounds like a very Kaminoan or Imperial thing to do, to try to understand the Force biologically, but ignore what it means spiritually. They're trying to gain control of this mystical, magical energy field through physical means, which I just don't think is going to work. I'm sure we'll find out more in future episodes. We know that ultimately the Empire's efforts on Mount Tantiss are going to fail. We know Project Necromancer is still a thing in The Mandalorian, which is nearly 30 years after the events of the Bad Batch, and we know the Emperor's clones on Exegol don't work. I really like the idea that just by focusing on saving this one girl because she deserves a chance to live her own life and make her own choices, Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, Rex, Echo, and potentially the rest of the clones could be saving the entire galaxy from Darth Sidious. But that's all speculation for future episodes. For now, I'll just reiterate that I thought The Return of the Bad Batch was great. I loved all the setup and payoff between episodes 1 and 3 specifically. I'm surprised to see Omega and Crosshair escaping so quickly, and I already can't wait to see them reunited with their brothers. What did you think of Confined, Paths Unknown, and Shadows of Tantiss? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page, where we're going to have video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode as they release. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.